Hello to all my legendary lunatics out there. Welcome back. And tonight we're going to finish what we started last night. Scary stories to tell in the dark. We get about halfway, a little under halfway through the book, and tonight we're going to go ahead and finish it. I am, as always, your host, Lord Jester Jack, your Lord of Lunacy himself. And joining me tonight is my fair lady, my queen, the Morticia to my Gomez. Abbey. How are you tonight, dear?
I'm good.
What are you drinking in there? Is that coffee?
Should I say yes?
You can say whatever you want. I don't care.
You don't need to know what I'm drinking out of
Okay.
a coffee cup at 10 o'clock at night.
What's your coffee mug say?
Hate you can trust.
Hate you can trust.
It's the Guild of Calamitous Intent.
It's a mug I bought on Amazon. Very good. If you like Venture Brothers, order that mug. Join the Guild of Calamitous Intent. Also join the subreddit I started and have not touched in about 3 months. Yay! Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Good advertisement. Also joining us tonight is going to be our legendary Mew, or Myuuji as he's also known, a pianist who posts all of his music onto YouTube and onto Spotify. If you don't know who he is, but you listen to creepypastas, you do know who he is. He plays all the piano music for most creepypasta stories. He has also stated that he does not mind if anyone uses his music. The only thing he wants is to be credited in the video or in the description, and I've decided I want to start doing that in both places. In the video and the description. Normally I'll say I'm playing Muse music. It's a tough one to say.
Muse music.
Normally I'll say that and then I'll put a credit in the description if I do, but I'm going to do both tonight. So anyways, without further ado, we're going to start up with Muse music.
I thought you were going to say like another guest and like someone was going to appear down the hallway or something. And I was like, who did you invite without telling me?
And how did they get inside the house with me being in here this entire time? That's the terrifying bit.
Yeah, now I'm getting scared. I
Don't
mean,
be scared.
our cat could be another guest, but she's outside.
We hear her tap on the window.
We live on the 3rd floor.
That's the terrifying part. Alrighty. Without further ado, we're 2 minutes in. Let's go ahead and get this train. Let's get this train on the road. The Haunted House. One time a preacher went to see if he could put a haunt to rest at a house in his settlement. The house had been haunted for about 10 years. Several people had tried to stay there all night, but they would always get scared out at night by the haunt. Sorry. So the preacher took his Bible and went to the house and went on in and built himself a good fire and lit a lamp. He sat there reading his Bible, and then just before midnight, he heard something start up in the cellar, walking back and forth. Back and forth. Then it sounded like somebody was trying to scream and got choked off. Then there was a lot of thrashing around and struggling, and finally, everything got quiet. The old preacher took up his Bible again, but before he could start reading, he heard footsteps coming up the cellar stairs. He sat watching the door to the cellar, and the footsteps kept coming closer and closer. He saw the doorknob turn. And when the door began to open, he jumped up and hollered, "What do you want?" The door shut back easy-like, and there wasn't a sound. The preacher was trembling a little, but he finally opened the Bible and read a while again. Then he got up and laid the book on the chair and went to mending his fire. That's when the haunt started walking again. And up the cellar stairs it came. The old preacher sat watching the door and saw the doorknob turn again, and the door opened, and what looked like a young woman was there. He backed up and said, "Who are you? What do you want?" The haunt sort of swayed like she didn't know what to do. And then she just faded out. The old preacher waited and waited, but when he didn't hear any more noises, he went over and shut the door. He was sweating and trembling all over, but he was a brave man and he thought he'd be able to see it through. So he turned his chair to where he could watch. He sat down and waited. And it wasn't long before he heard the haunt up again. Slowly, step, 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 closer and closer. Step, 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 and it was right at the door again. The preacher stood up and held his Bible out before him. Then the knob slowly turned and the door opened wide. This time the preacher spoke quiet-like. He said, "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, who are you and what do you want?" The haunt came right across the room, straight up to him, and took hold of his coat. It was a young woman about 20 years old. Her hair was torn and tangled. The flesh was drooping off of her face, so you could see that the bones and part of her teeth were exposed. She had no eyeballs, but there was a sort of blue light way back in her eye sockets. She had no nose to her face. Then she started talking, and it sounded like her voice was coming and going with the wind blowing. She told of how her lover had killed her for her money and buried her in the cellar. She said if the preacher could dig up her bones and bury her properly, then she could finally rest. And then she told him to take the end joint of her little pinky bone from her left hand and lay it in the collection plate that night, the next day at church. He'd find out who had murdered her. And she said, "If you come back once more after that, you will hear my voice at midnight. I'll tell you where the money is hid, and you can give it to the church." The haunt sobbed like she was tired, and she sunk down towards the floor, and then she was gone. The preacher found her bones and buried them in a graveyard. The next Sunday, the preacher put the finger bone in the collection plate, and when a certain man happened to touch it, it stuck to his hand. The man jumped up and rubbed and scraped and tore at that bone, trying to get it off. Then he went screaming like he was going crazy. Then he confessed to the murder, and they took him off to jail. After the man was hung, the preacher went back to the house one midnight. The haunt's voice told him to dig under the hearth rock. He did. And he found a big sack of money. And where that haunt had held onto his coat, the print of those bony fingers was burned right into the cloth. And it never came out. What'd you think of that one, honey?
I didn't like the picture.
Oh, the picture. I've not been showing them the photos, but I can show them the picture on that one.
It's just they're calling her a young woman.
Well, I mean, when you don't really have any face, it's kind of hard to tell what's young.
Okay. It looks like what they based the corpse off of in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
But most likely. I think a lot of what they did with the movie was they just kind of went with the scariest photos.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, in everyone's top 5.
Because the Where's My Toe, that's what that story was.
It's like they mixed that one with the big toe where he eats the big toe.
Yeah.
But
I think I was making a face for probably like 3 minutes because I was staring at that picture.
Yeah, it's freaky.
I thought she was gonna kill him for coming back for the money. But if a ghost, like, even if I was like, oh man, I could give this money to hungry children, this is probably gonna make me sound like an awful person, but a ghost was like, come back at midnight, I'll give you the money. I'd be like, sorry, I'd rather sell my feet pics.
I mean, that's one way to look at it. And I think one really cool thing about it, before I forget, I was going to comment, the drawings by Stephen Gamble, if you have not sat and looked at the Scary Story, like, drawings, look at them. They're terrifying, but they're really, really intricate and very unique.
Look at them in the dead of night, and then dream about them.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I like this story because it does one thing that a lot of ghost stories don't do nowadays, is like, in a lot of ghost movies these days, you don't see good ghosts. I mean, that ghost was a person one day, like, and her story was depressing. She fell in love with the guy, not knowing that he only loved her for her money, ran away with him, and he killed her and buried her in the basement to steal her money.
It's kind of weird because we were just watching The Corpse Bride.
Yeah.
I wonder if The Corpse Bride was based off that.
Maybe. This book came out in, like, what, the 90s, wasn't it? Late 90s? It doesn't say there. The movie was 2017. It looks like 1981. There's no way this is 1981, was it?
So, I mean, it's possible. I'm gonna Google that. Also, I realize what's in my coffee cup is brown, so it looks like it could be coffee.
It could be coffee. But no, you just in most movies these days you don't really see good ghosts. You
What's
see.
the story called?
Listens to scary stories to tell in the dark.
No, that particular story.
Oh, that particular story. The haunted house. Adapted from a story of that title in American Folk Tales and Songs by Richard Chase with permission of Dover Publications, copyright 1956. So it's possible that that's where.
No, I know, but what's the short story called?
That's what I said.
No. Does it not say at the beginning of the story that you were reading?
Oh yeah, the haunted house.
The haunted house. From
American Folk Tales and Songs. But yeah, no, I feel like good ghosts isn't something you see very often anymore. Okay, the guests. A young man and his wife were on a trip to visit his mother, and usually they arrived on time for supper. But they had gotten a late start, and now it was getting dark. So they decided to look for a place to stay overnight and go on in the morning. Just off the road, they saw a small house in the woods. Maybe they rent rooms, the wife said, so they stopped to ask. An elderly man and woman came by the door. They didn't rent rooms, they said, but they'd be glad to have them over for the night as their guests. They had plenty of room, and they would enjoy the company. The old woman made coffee and brought out some cake, and the four of them talked for a while. Then the young couple were taken to their room. They again explained that they wanted to pay for this, but the old man said that they would not accept any money. The young couple got up early the next morning before the host had awakened. On the table near the front door, they found an envelope with some money in it for the room. They left an envelope with some money in it for the room. Then they went on to the next town. They stopped in a restaurant and had breakfast. When they told the owner where they had stayed, he was shocked. "That can't be," he said. "That house burned to the ground, and the man and woman who lived there, the old couple died in the fire." The young couple could not believe this. They thought they were being pranked. So they went back to the house, only now there was no house. All they found was a burned-out shell. They stood staring at the ruins, trying to understand what had happened. And then the woman screamed. In the rubble was a badly burned coffee table, like the one they had seen by the front door. And on that table was an envelope. Envelope with the money that they had left that morning. It's another really good one about good ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be pretty terrifying, though. You stopped for the night at like a B&B, which wasn't even a B&B, it was just a nice couple. And next thing you know, you find out that you stayed in the burned-out shell of a home. That would be terrifying. But we're on to the next section of the book.
Also, to answer the question, no, it was not based off that story. It was based off a Jewish folklore about a man who accidentally marries a murdered bride and stuff like that. But like in some endings, her bones turn to dust, and then others it's like nice and they honor her life. So yeah,
Interesting.
But Tim Burton wanted to take out the whole like religious aspects to it and kind of instead in Victorian England. Yeah.
Interesting.
So no, it's not based off of that. And now I'm reading about scary stories to tell in the dark.
Nice. This next section is called "They Eat Your Eyes, They Eat Your Nose." These are scary stories about all kinds of things. The ones told here are about a grave, a witch, a man who liked to swim, a hunting trip, and a market basket. There also is one about worms eating your corpse. Or eating a corpse, your corpse. The hearse song. Actually, this one I'm just going to read real quick. Don't you ever laugh as a hearse goes by, for you might be the next to die. They'll wrap you up in a big white sheet, from your head down to your feet. They put you in a big black box and cover you up with dirt and rocks. All goes well for about a week, and then your coffin begins to leak. The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out. The worms play pinochle on your snout. They eat your eyes, they eat your nose. They'll eat that jelly between your toes. A big green worm with rolling eyes crawls in your stomach and out your eyes. Your stomach turns a slimy green, and pus pours out like whipping cream. You spread it on a slice of bread, and that's what you eat when you are dead. Just a cute little poem. There's even, so cool thing, a couple of the little poems like that in here have musical notes with them that give you like notes and everything, but I just don't know how to read music, so.
You don't know how to read music?
Do what?
You don't know how to read music?
I mean, if I can get the starting note, I can usually stumble it out, but.
I'm surprised.
Why are you surprised?
Because you're an actor who also does musicals.
How do I sound?
Oh, okay.
The Girl Who Stood on a Grave. Some boys and girls were at a party one night. There was a graveyard down the street, and they were talking about how scary it was. "Don't ever stand on a grave after dark," one of the boys said. "The person inside will grab you. He'll pull you under." "That's not true," one of the girls said. "It's just a superstition." "I'll give you $1 if you go stand on a grave," said the boy. "A grave doesn't scare me," said the girl. "I'll do it right now." The boy handed her his knife. "Stick this knife in one of the graves," he said. "Then we'll know that you were there." The graveyard was filled with shadows and was as quiet as death. "There's nothing to be scared of," the girl told herself. But she was scared anyways. She picked out a grave and stood on it. Then quickly she bent over and plunged the knife into the soil, and she started to leave. But she couldn't get away. Something was holding her back. She tried a second time to leave it, but she couldn't move. She was filled with terror. "Something has got me!" she screamed, and she fell to the ground, screaming. When she didn't come back, the others went to look for her. They found her body sprawled across the grave, her face a scream of terror. Without realizing it, she had plunged the knife through her skirt and pinned herself to the ground. It was only the knife that had held her to that grave. She had died of fright. That sucks. What a way to go.
So you don't fuck around in graveyards.
Amen.
She definitely fucked around and found out.
A new horse. 2 farmhands shared a room. One slept at the back of the room, and the other slept near the door. After a while, the one who slept near the door began to feel very tired early in the day. His friend asked what was wrong. "An awful thing happens every night," he said. "A witch turns me into a horse, and she rides me all over the countryside." "I'll sleep in your bed tonight," the friend said. "We'll see what happens to me." Around midnight, an old woman who lived nearby came into the room. She mumbled something strange, some words over the farmhand, and he found that he couldn't move. Then she slipped the bridle on him, and he turned right into a horse. Next thing he knew, she was riding him across the fields at breakneck speed, beating him to make him go even faster. Soon they came to a house where a party was going on. There was a lot of music and dancing, and they were having a great big time inside. She hitched him to a fence and went in. While she was gone, the farmhand rubbed against the fence until the bridle came off, and he turned back into a human being. Then he went into the house and found the witch. He spoke those strange words over her. With the bridle, he turned her into a horse. Then he rode her to the blacksmith and fitted her with horseshoes. After that, he rode her to the farm where she lived. "Got a pretty good filly here," he told her husband. "But Oh, he took her to her house, sorry. Got a pretty good filly here, he told her husband. But, I need a stronger horse. Would you like to trade? The old man looked her over. He said he would. So they picked out another horse, and the farmhand rode away. Her husband led the new horse to the barn. He took off the bridle and went to hang it up. When he came back, the new horse was gone. Instead, there stood his wife, with horseshoes nailed to her hands and feet. Yeah, don't be a dick.
Don't turn people into horses. I think that's the moral of the story here.
Especially considering her husband had horses. Why did she go with that? She was just being a bitch.
I mean, I had the ability to turn people into horses because I had a magic bridle. I would test it out once. I'd test it out once and then I'd be like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Sorry, fam. Go about my day. Or maybe it's just because she really liked the party and her husband was not down for it. You know, he's not down to clown.
Maybe.
So she's like, I have to find my own horse because if I steal the horses, he'll know.
That's fair.
But
yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, she could have like hired someone.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's better ways to go about than turning people into horses for the night. Especially if they're farmhands. They work really hard throughout the day.
Amen.
Sorry.
You're fine.
This coffee's making me burp.
Yes, the coffee. Next one is called Alligators. A young woman in town married a man from another part of the country. He was a nice fellow, and they got along pretty well. There was only one problem. Every night he'd go swimming in the river. Sometimes he'd be gone all night long, and she would complain about how lonely she was. This couple had 2 young sons. As soon as the boys could walk, their father began to teach them how to swim. When they got to be old enough, he took them swimming in the river at night with him. Often they would stay out there all night long. And the young woman, well, she'd stay home all by herself. After a while, she began to act in a very strange way. At least that's what the neighbors said. She told them that her husband was turning into an alligator. He was trying to turn the boys into alligators. Everybody just told her that there's nothing wrong with a man taking his son swimming. That was just a natural thing to do. And then, when it came to the alligators, there just weren't any nearby. Everybody knew that. Now, early one morning, the young woman came running into town from the direction of the river. She was soaking wet. She said a big alligator and 2 little alligators had pulled her in and tried to get her to eat raw fish. She said it was her husband and her sons. She said they wanted her to live out there with them. But she had gotten away. Now the doctor, he decided she'd lost her mind. He had her put in a hospital for a while. After that, nobody saw her husband and the boys ever again. They just disappeared. But now and then, the fishermen would tell about seeing some alligators out in the river at night. Usually it was 1 big alligator and 2 small ones. And people said they were just making it up. Everybody knows there aren't any alligators around here. Right?
What does that mean?
What do you mean?
Did they turn her family into alligators?
He turned into an alligator, apparently. I don't know. Maybe the witch had a...
Gator.
Oh, maybe she fucked an alligator. Maybe that's what it was. I'm just
Not
imagining...
That gator dick.
Just imagining when she's pretending he's still a human. She's just got an alligator up on its hind legs in a shirt with glasses, and everyone's just like, well, there's Mitch.
There's Al.
Oh my god.
And on that note...
That was pretty good. Next up. Room for one more.
Room for one more story?
Well, the name of the story is Room for One More. Let's see how long it is. It is very short. Then Wendigo is on here. It's very long. Well, not very long, but it's several pages. We'll see what time it is. We're sitting at 25 minutes. We'll do this one. We'll see what we're sitting at. Okay. Room for one more. A man named Joseph Blackwell came to Philadelphia on a business trip. He stayed with friends in the big house they owned outside the city. That night they had a good time visiting. But when Blackwell went to bed, he tossed and turned and couldn't sleep. Sometime during the night he heard a car turn into the driveway. He went to the window to see who was arriving at such a late hour. And in the moonlight he saw a long black hearse filled with people. The driver of the hearse looked up at him. When Blackwell saw his queer, hideous face, he shuddered. The driver called to him, "There is room for one more." Then he waited for a minute or two, and he drove off. In the morning, Blackwell told his friends what had happened. "You were dreaming," they said. "I must have been," he said, "but it didn't seem like a dream." After breakfast, he went into Philadelphia. He spent the day high above the city in one of those new office buildings there. Then late in the afternoon, he was waiting for an elevator to take him back down the street. But when it arrived, it was very crowded. One of the passengers looked up and called to him, "Hey, we've got room for one more." And Joseph froze. It was the same driver of the hearse. "No thanks," said Blackwell. I'll get the next one." The doors closed as the driver smiled. And finally, the elevator started down. And suddenly there was shrieking and screaming and the sound of a crash. The elevator had fallen at the bottom of the shaft. There were no survivors on board.
So gay goth clowns. Got it.
What? Gay goth clowns?
I was listening to the whole story and all the only thing I could think about, because he says he has a queer face, which I know that it's not necessarily what it means gay, and then I thought, driving up in a hearse, there's a bunch of people in the hearse, so like clowns, right? So gay goth clowns. I'm very tired.
What's in your coffee cup again?
Coffee.
Coffee, yeah, that's it.
Coffee that's rum flavored.
Well, I think we're going to go ahead and call it a night, because there's there's 4 pages, I think, in the next story, and then we've got a whole other section left to do. So I guess if you want to hear some more, come back tomorrow. We'll do more. It seems like you guys really enjoyed last night's video. We're already at 26 views in one night, which that hasn't happened in a while.
So if you want to learn about more gay goth clowns.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe so we know what you like. And I think we got 2 likes tonight, or last night from this.
I was like, whoa.
We already got 2 likes for this one, I think.
Premonition. It's us. It's us too. Yep. We like our own
We liked our own content.
Wow.
But yeah, if you have any comments or anything to say, leave a comment down below. But we just want to thank you so much for watching. And remember to sit back, relax, and enjoy the darkness around you, because sometimes you can see very interesting things there that just get overlooked.
If you're going to like this video, at least like it for my wolf shirt.
Oh, she's got her fancy wolf shirt. Very nice, very nice. I do love that wolf shirt. Have a good night, guys. Take care. God bless. Love you.